that, I would respectfully request that you approve these two people so that they can go to work.
That's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to move to review of correspondence. Maybe Mr. Tryon?
I do not have anything to bring before the board today, Madam Chair.
Mr. Walensky?
On Wednesday, I have the camera meeting at the CCWD at 10 a.m. On Friday, I have the Behavioral Health Job Club from 9 to noon, and that completes the agenda for this week.
Mr. Tuffanelli?
I also have a camera meeting, which is Calaveras Amador Water, McCollum River Authority. That's 10 a.m. at CCWD boardroom. Wednesday night at Toyon Elementary School. I will be there from 6 to 8 for the 1226 workshop put on by Public Works. And on Thursday, I will be at the Valley Springs Elementary School for the general plan workshop. That's from 6:30 to 8:30. And that completes what I have for the week.
Mr. Thomas?
Okay, a few, the fellow board members will remember back a few weeks ago, we received a letter from the Copperopolis Community Center. This is an announcement about their upcoming 150th birthday, or 150th anniversary of the commencement of the township of Copperopolis. Is coming up on June the 5th this year. Did you see this? This is extending an invitation to all of us to attend. It's going to be a lot of pretty memorable things going on that day, so please come if you can. It's I don't know.
Yes.
Wasn't that the lady that came over with Lewis and Clark? So, oh, that's a different thing. Yes, it's a 150th birthday.
Are you going to be in a dunk tank or anything? Are you
No.
going to dunk the supervisor?
No, Michael Tober he's the fellow that has the Copperopolis horseback packing company, and he's told me that he is going to pack an upright piano, and I hope to be sitting on a pallet playing the piano. He's going to have this piano stretched between two mules, so it should be.
It'll be a bumpy ride.
Do you have a piano we can use? No. Okay. But honestly, it should be a very enjoyable event. It's my understanding that Huell Hauser is going to be there to film the event. It's just amazing. But anyway, we'll expect to see all of you there. Okay, as far as board-appointed responsibilities for this week, I want to remind everybody that may be listening or here that the general plan alternatives discussion will take place on Wednesday night at the Copperopolis Armory, beginning at 6:30. Let's see, and that's all my board-appointed responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the reminder about the general plan. The general plan public meeting for Ebbets Pass will be on Monday the 22nd at 6:30 at Independence Hall. It had been moved from yesterday, I think, during the day. I have Administration of Justice on Wednesday, the Greater Arnold Business Association on Thursday, and I will be at Ironstone this weekend for the expo that's being sponsored by Focus, Mark Twain, so forth. So if any of you can get out there, there's on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there's a whole host of events. Ms. Boyce?
I just want to check with the board. We've tentatively scheduled budget hearings for June 8th to 11th, so if you could check your calendars and make sure that works. That's the second week in June.
June 8th.
June 8th, that's a Tuesday. I would assume after the
Did you
board
say
meeting.
8th, 9th, and
8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. We just usually block out that week. I mean, we may
Okay.
not need those, all those, hopefully not 4 days, but it's best to hold them.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. That's it.
Anything else? Mr. Jones? I just want to announce the board will be going, if we have time, to the Thai house for lunch. We've kind of gotten away from saying where we're going for lunch. And anybody's welcome to join. It's all Dutch treat. If there's no other comments, we'll take a 5-minute recess and move into our study session. I'd like to proceed to our study session on the New Maloney's decision that was made by the Bureau of Reclamation. This is just a study session. There is no action taken by the board on study sessions. There could be direction given, but no formal action. I will turn it over to our CAO. They will allow the Bureau to make any comments. I'll ask the board if there are any questions or comments they'd like to make, and I will open it to the public for any comments or questions they'd like to make, and bring it back to the board for any final direction we might or might not give. Thank you. Ms. Boyce.
Yes, good morning. At the board's direction, I contacted Jeff Laird with the Bureau of Reclamation and invited him and some of his colleagues to come and present to the board the Bureau of Reclamation's latest information on the new Maloney's Lake Area Resource Management Plan and the Environmental Impact Statement. And the board has previously expressed their position with regards to some of the alternatives that have been looked at in the draft plan. The Bureau of Reclamation has issued their final plan, and so today the Bureau of Reclamation has graciously agreed to come here today to talk about the status of the plan and the process that has taken place to get to this point. So Jeff Laird is here, and
Thank
we
you.
welcome you. Thank you.
Could you just please introduce yourselves for the record? Thank you.
Sure. My name is Jeff Laird, and I work for the Bureau of Reclamation as the resource manager at New Maloney's Lake. And this is Dan Holzapfel, and he also works at New Maloney's Lake as the natural resource specialist. Well, first, thank you for inviting us to come and speak to the board this morning. What I'd like to do today is just to provide a short presentation that outlines the status of the resource management plan, environmental impact statement, planning effort that's going on in New Maloney's right now. The purpose of the New Maloney's RMP EIS is to establish a conceptual plan that details the management framework for visitor use, conservation, protection, and development of the environmental resources. And during the planning, 4 management alternatives were developed for the RMP EIS. Alternative A, which is the no-action alternative, would be a continuation of the current management and is based on the existing 1976 master plan and amendments. Alternative B, the increased use alternative, emphasizes development of recreational resources and infrastructure with the goal of encouraging and accommodating increasing numbers of visitors while protecting the natural and cultural resources as required by law. Alternative C is the conservation alternative, and that alternative emphasizes active management of natural and cultural resources and places less emphasis on resource use than does alternative A. Alternative D, the multiple use alternative, seeks to balance the projected increases in visitors and the demand for an array of user opportunities at the lake with the need to protect, enhance, and conserve the natural and cultural resources that are found in the planning area. Alternative D is Reclamation's preferred alternative and the proposed action alternative. Reclamation selected the preferred alternative based on interdisciplinary team recommendations based on environmental consequences analysis of the alternatives, and based on public input during the scoping. Alternative D has received the most public support. Comments received during the public scoping have indicated the public's desire to continue conservation while also providing for increased recreation opportunities. Alternative A was not the preferred alternative because it doesn't adequately address current and relevant issues and concerns that were identified by the public. It also does not adequately address the required planning components and concerns of the planning team. And alternatives B and C, they do both address current and relevant issues and concerns, and they also address the required planning components. But these alternatives were not chosen because they lack a balance between resource conservation and resource use. At this time, alternative D provides the most reasonable and practical approach to managing the project resources and uses while addressing the relevant issues and the purpose and need. Alternative D balances project lands management with an appropriate level of flexibility to meet the overall needs of the resources and uses. And this alternative represents proactive management and provides flexibility to adjust to changing conditions over the life of the plan while emphasizing a level of protection, enhancement, and use of the resources into the future. So I'd like to talk just a few moments about a few of the resource categories in the Resource Management Plan and EIS, their goals, and some of the allowed actions of those categories. The general recreation goals in the RMP are to provide for diverse recreation within reclamation's authorities, to afford a safe and quality recreation experience consistent with natural and cultural resource management objectives, to achieve fair value for recreation, and to ensure that concessions are planned, developed, and managed to meet public needs, are compatible with the natural and cultural resources, and provide a variety of services which are consistent with authorized project purposes. And some examples of general recreation actions that would be allowed under the preferred alternative include things like to continue the fee program under the Recreation Enhancement Act, to provide for a variety of recreation experiences, utilizing a mix of commercial services, cooperative agreements, and cost share programs, and to update the land capability and management areas of the project. The aquatic-based recreation goals are to provide a diverse range of water-based recreation opportunities suited to user needs that are compatible with the existing character of the lake and the surrounding lands, and to protect cultural resources, natural resources, and water quality for the future while providing safe and enjoyable recreation experiences. Some examples of those aquatic-based recreation actions that would be allowed include implementing additional lake zones to help protect the public and natural resources, installing additional floating vault toilets on the lake, and another action would be to prepare and implement a moored vessel plan, which would include term limits for mooring permits and an inspection program to help protect the aquatic environment and public safety. The land-based recreation goals.
Jeff, excuse me, could I interrupt for a second? That statement about the moored vessel permits, is that synonymous with the houseboats? Is that what you're talking about?
It includes all vessels that have a mooring permit at the marina. So it includes houseboats and other small vessels.
Okay, could you expand on what is the rationale, or what goes into this like an expiration date on the permit, or what was that previous slide said something about term limit? Yeah.
Sure. Can I answer questions at the end?
Yeah. Okay.
Would that be okay? I'll write
Yes.
that down and come back to it. Thank you. Land-based recreation goals are to provide a diverse range of land-based recreation opportunities, to provide specific recreation opportunities and adequate, flexible, and efficient support facilities under varying lake level conditions without compromising ecological resources and by demonstrating compatibility with the site-specific suitability of land and water environmental conditions, and to provide a variety of non-motorized recreational experiences using trails and pathways. So some examples of those land-based recreation actions that would be allowed include relocating the equestrian staging area to outside of the security area around the dam and the baseline conservation camp, optimizing trail connectivity both on the New Melones project and with regional trails, updating and modernizing campground facilities, and preparing and implementing an interpretive master plan that would bring the interpretive program at New Melones into compliance with reclamation requirements. And then the natural resource goals are to manage for habitat quality, to maintain or enhance biological diversity, to manage vegetation in areas outside of fuel treatment project perimeters to retain sufficient wildlife cover, to conserve sensitive wildlife habitats by minimizing disruption and loss, to enhance wildlife habitat values, features, and diversity on the project, and to restore wildlife habitat values of damaged areas through revegetation and restoration. Some examples of natural resource actions that would be allowed include conducting surveys to assist in the monitoring of key plant populations and project planning, implementing the interim management plan for Peoria Wildlife Management Area, providing lake access where feasible, using best management practices to resolve lack of sanitation facilities, and to make improvements to fish cleaning stations. Other actions might include to allow baseline conservation camp to continue operation at the Peoria Wildlife Management Area, eliminating unpermitted grazing and water access, continuing to implement the vegetation management plan, and implementing the proposed project-wide fire management plan. And the access and transportation goals are to manage travel, roads, and trails to provide safe access, minimize resource impacts, and provide for multiple use recreation opportunities within the planning area. Actions for access and transportation that would be allowed include continuing the present status of roads and access roads in undeveloped areas. While some areas such as Old Parrots Ferry Road and New Melones Recreation Area could be reopened with updated facilities, updating and modernizing minimum basic facilities in several areas, including Mark Twain, Camp 9, Parrots Ferry, and Glory Hall and Tuttletown recreation areas. And to manage overflight activities to avoid conflict by increasing education and communication with aviators, with county airport personnel, and the FAA. Other actions would include updating and modernizing roads where appropriate, entering into a road maintenance agreement for Glory Hole, Whittle Ranch Road, or to transfer a portion of that road to Calaveras County, and expanding recreation facilities if a managing partner is identified and a proposal is economically and logistically feasible, considering transportation routes into the west side and Bowie Flat areas if vehicle access is needed for recreation use or other project purposes, and to permanently adopt the current interim management plan for the Peoria Mountain Wildlife Management Area. The public health and safety goals are to comply with applicable regulations to protect public health and safety, to comply with health and safety requirements for reclamation staff and representatives, and to maintain a safe and healthy environment for employees and the public. And actions that would be allowed for public health and safety include things such as continuing to contract for law enforcement services with both Calaveras and Tuolumne counties, and requesting that the counties adopt ordinances that mirror New Melones rules and regulations, and also exploring the option of providing a sheriff's substation with lake access for both Calaveras and Tuolumne counties. New Melones Lake plays an important role in the lives of Calaveras and Tuolumne County and the United States. Alternative D provides the most reasonable and practical approach to balancing the projected increases in visitors and the demands for a variety of recreation uses with the conservation of natural and cultural resources into the future. The record of decision for the RMP EIS is currently being drafted and reviewed and may be completed and signed sometime in April of this year. When that happens, Lou Maloney's managers would begin using the RMP EIS to guide their decisions at New Maloney's. That's the end of my presentation. I'd love to take questions now. If needed, I would also like to offer to provide, written responses back to the board, or just to make sure that questions are answered accurately and fully.
Thank you, Mr. Laird.
I'll leave that.
Russ, did you want to?
Okay, yeah, I would like to lead this off. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that we have Bob Ehlert, who is the district representative from Congressman Lundgren's office here. I specifically asked him to come and attend with us today. Okay, Mr. Laird, this record of decision that will be adopted in April, are we to understand that there is no possibility of changing any language in this document between now and April?
No, that's incorrect. The record of decision is developed by the regional director in Sacramento, and the regional director takes into account the preferred alternative, all of the public scoping comments, and comments from cooperating agencies, and the regional director can make the decision that he wants to make. We would anticipate that he will adopt the preferred alternative, but he has the option to take actions from the other alternatives and add them to the preferred alternative, and he also has the authority to take actions out of the preferred alternative altogether.
Okay, and that is Mr. Finnegan?
That's Donald Glazer, who's the Mid-Pacific Region Director. Michael Finnegan is the Central California Area Office Manager.
Say again Mr. Glazer's position?
He is the Mid-Pacific Regional Director.
Okay. All right. A number of things concern me about this. You stated that this alternative D has received the most public support. If you recall, almost 2 years ago, we had a meeting over here at CalWorks where representatives from BOR came and met with county representatives and some representatives from the city. And it was at that meeting that I first heard the concept about a cooperating agency, that as a county expressing specific desires for things to be worked into this plan that would give significant consideration and weight to the objectives and policies and goals of the county, that we might be invited to be a more active or a vocal participant at the table. We've never really had an opportunity to do this, and frankly, I don't see anything or very, very little in this plan that would indicate that anybody's been listening to Calaveras County as we have expressed our wants and needs and desires for improvements in this plan. The thing that has always struck me about this whole process is that at the very onset, I mean, going back 2.5 years ago, there was a declarative statement in this document, in the resource management plan, that said that the foundation, the basis upon which this new plan was going to be made, was fundamentally based on the 1976 plan. That was going to be the source document, and things were going to be built upon that. I was encouraged by that statement because, I mean, you've heard me say this before, in that 76 plan, there was what I characterized or felt that when I read it was a promise that there would be 3 million visitors to this facility by this point in time, in the 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I mean, everybody acknowledges that the annual usership is only, the maximum it's ever reached was 800,000. So, I mean, armed with that projected 3 million, and we've undershot it significantly, I think everybody would agree. It is extremely difficult for me to get my head around the idea that continuing pretty much at a status quo level fulfills that promise that you are going to use that original 1976 document as the basis for this new management plan that would guide the operation of the lake into the future. So the thing that I'm getting really kind of agitated about this is because this county is in kind of a desperate economic situation right now, that we can see in this we've asked for the ability to develop some reasonable and necessary recreational offerings or recreational opportunities on the west shore of the lake. We've done a great amount of work to get a willing property owner that is giving us permission to build a road across the whole length of the road, and I'll be showing some presentations about where this is going to go and how it's going to work. But it's about 4 miles going across his property. There's 3/8 of a mile that we're asking for permission from the Bureau of Reclamation to use. And you know, this statement in here that you've come up with, and maybe Mr. Glazer will be more sympathetic to my plea here, but that you'll allow access to the west side should vehicle access be needed for recreation use or other project purposes. That's not enough for us. You know, in order to get the road built, we have to have a funding mechanism, and the funding mechanism, as I will demonstrate, is a recreation fee that the development community in the Copperopolis area has expressed an early on and a unanimous willingness to charge on the new building permits in that area. It's absolutely necessary that we have more aggressive language in this document in order to justify implementing the fee. So that's my objective, and I think the objective of this board, as was demonstrated in the previous letters that we sent to you. And I don't know, I have difficulty fully expressing my disappointment that we weren't actually regarded as a cooperating agency. We just seemed to be lumped in with all the other the public comments that you heard from a lot of people. Our voice was not given any more weight than all of those. That's my assessment. Now, getting back to the question that I asked about these vessel moorings, I have determined in a number of conversations with your current concessionaire that they would like very much to expand or be given permission, and incidentally, they are still waiting for a renewal of their license agreement. I mean, I think it's expiring in 6 months or so. Is that?
Their concession contract expires December 31st, 2012.
Oh, 2012, okay. All right, but this, in comparison to other lakes of similar size, some larger, some smaller, this lake has a current permitting level of less than a third of what other similar sized lakes have. In my mind's eye, I can see with this west side road coming into a new marina facility over there, we'd have the ability to have houseboats that could be purchased by the people in the Copperopolis area. That would certainly be a lot more advantageous to go to them at that location, driving 4 miles instead of, it's not important how far it is, but it takes 45 minutes or so to get up and around to the Glory Hole access, which incidentally based on the conversations I've had with your concessionaire, it is a very poor place to have the houseboats moored because of the south winds, the storm conditions. It makes them very vulnerable. Whereas in Texas Charlie Gulch, it's a very large and deep anchorage that would provide better and safer anchorage for those vessels. So that's all the railing that I want to do right at the moment, but anybody else?
Did you want your question answered on term limits?
Yeah, what is the reason for this consideration of term limits for the houseboats?
The reason for that is the Department of Interior has regulations that outline a policy of not allowing exclusive use. And I don't have the exact definition with me, but that is use that any one person or entity has that might be, an example would be a houseboat mooring permit or a cabin on a Department of Interior lands where those folks have, in essence, an unlimited term of being able to stay there. They get to keep having that cabin for their private use on federal lands or that houseboat on federal waters until such time as, that their family
Doesn't want it.
chooses to give that up.
Yeah.
And so there's policy now passed in the last 2 years that prohibits exclusive use. And houseboats, long-term houseboat permits fall under that. There's been no decision by our region or our area office as to what that term limit could be. I know that the area office and the regional office are trying to decide what that term limit might be for houseboats or for moored vessels. And it's not just houseboats, it's also just any other vessels that are moored long-term at the marinas that Reclamation manages. And because we want to make sure that we're in compliance with those rules, and also that the public has some opportunity over many years to be able to have an opportunity to have a houseboat or a moored vessel on a lake by any models.
Okay, but in other jurisdictions where this system has been in place, what's in general terms, what is the length of that lease period or permit period?
In Reclamation, I don't know that it's been in place because most of the marina concession contracts have been in place for 30 to 50 years, and the time when those term limits can be implemented is when those concession contracts are, when they expire and new ones are issued.
Okay.
So I can't give you a time on this.
All right. You may not be able to answer this, but there was a time when this is the last iteration of this document. Previously there was a lot of pushback because there was I think a misunderstanding that we were proposing to build two roads, one on the north end, one on the south end, and we wanted to have intensive use on our access to Bowie Flat. Is there still some what I would characterize as a misunderstanding that a part of this proposal, the singular thrust to have a road, it still has some component to use Bowie Flat, because that's 5 miles away. We don't want to be in Bowie Flat. We don't want this particular aspect of the proposal to be tainted by what could be some legitimate concerns about the unmanageability of having a lot of people going to Bowie Flat.
No, Reclamation understands what you brought to the meetings as a single road proposal, but what Reclamation would need to be able to evaluate a proposal is a much more defined proposal than what I understand that I've seen is different maps and also verbal descriptions and proposals, and a very general description, written description. in order for Reclamation to consider the proposal, they need, I don't have a definitive list, but several detailed items like a financial feasibility report that shows that there is funding from city or county or another governmental entity, both to plan, to build and operate and maintain a facility for a long period of time. They need something like a visitor services plan, which would include just a very detailed description of all the components that go into building and operating and maintaining a recreation facility, a road and recreation facility on federal property. Would also require some sort of NEPA document, National Environmental Policy Act document, environmental impact statement, something like that. And then in that plan, in the visitor services plan, there need to be descriptions of fire protection, law enforcement, public health and safety information, those types of things. And until those items or that sort of mix of documents is prepared, Reclamation is not prepared to evaluate the proposal. But the resource management plan certainly allows that, and Reclamation wants to be very clear that they're not saying there's never going to be a road on the west side or no new development at New Maloney's, but it has to be well developed and able to be funded by someone other than Reclamation.
Well, we have, that's all we've ever proposed, is that we're going to pay for it. We'll use only 3/8 of a mile of your property, and I can demonstrate to you when I get down to the computer, where this is going to go, how it's going to be done, how it'll be funded. I'd encourage you to kind of make mental notes or written notes to see where the flaws may be in our assumptions. But I think that we can easily fulfill those requirements. All we need to do is, it's kind of like a catch-22 situation. We can't begin to start collecting the funds if we had a more declarative, or if the door was open wider than just cracked a little bit like that phrase. I think that the county could implement the fee structure and make all of that happen. So,
Mr. Thomas also brought part of the Reclamation Manual, Directives and Standards, which I'll provide to you or the board here. And it outlines the requirements for managing partners. I don't know if you've ever seen this before.
I haven't. I've heard you made reference to that before, but I haven't seen it. Okay, that'll be good. But getting back to that fundamental that shortfall on the usership, how can the Bureau justify $800,000 a year versus $3 million? What's been their rationale for that?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. What's the rationale? That was a projection in the 1976 master plan. If all the facilities had been built that were proposed there, and those were not built, as we all know. And,
well, what facilities? I mean, they only had the 2 access points. They had Glory Hole and Tuttletown. I built those facilities up there, so I know what was planned in the original. I mean, we built 30 buildings around that lake. But are you telling me that there were other access points, other ramps and stuff that were originally proposed?
There were. In the 1976 master plan, there were facilities proposed south of Tuttletown, additional marina in the Bear Creek area, additional campgrounds, lodging, restaurants in Bear Creek and chaparral areas, which are more farther to the south. Also, there was additional development proposed in Angels Creek, Glory Hole area farther to the north of the developments there now, an equestrian area. And there are also several smaller camping facilities proposed to be built along Camp 9 Road in Skunk Gulch and Grapevine Gulch and Camp 9 areas.
Okay. Well, it still is a mystery to me how the opening paragraphs of this document that talked about with the process that began several years ago was that the 76 plan was going to be used as the guiding principles, and I don't know, I guess that's enough about that, but I'd like to show these presentations now, unless other people have questions.
Do you want to do it before I open up for public comment?
I think that what I have to show may answer some of the questions that people may have. But
It's fine.
I do have a couple of
That's
questions.
good.
do I.
Steve?
First, want to thank you for being here. It's always good to have interagency communications. I'm trying to understand the process that we've been through, and it goes back a long ways. As you know, I used to actually raft and kayak that river, and certainly it's changed since then. I've got a couple of comments. First, the county is going through its own options phase of its general plan process, and I wanted to compliment you on particularly on the format of comparing the options and having an ability issue by issue to note the difference between them. Our current process is you got to read a whole lot and do your own charts, so this is much appreciated, and I think it's helpful to understand the differences. On your process, I'm curious how many, on the public input part, how many people participated? What was over the period of time that you were taking input on these options, what were the numbers like?
Well, I don't have exact numbers.
What was it?
I would say
Dozens, scores, hundreds?
probably 500 total, at least. We have developed a mailing list of folks who are interested. I know that there's over 700 names on that mailing list.
And as you suggested, most of the support was for alternative D. Can you break that down numerically, where the input broke down? And from Calaveras County, did you break out the folks from this side of the former river?
I couldn't do that right now, but I could provide that to you in a written format later.
Was it overwhelming support? Was it, did it have regional bases? Was most of the input from Tuolumne? Just sort of curious about those aspects.
I couldn't tell you if most of the support was from any specific place, but there was more support, and the numbers support that. I just don't have those today.
All right. Also, process-wise, from I guess I'm curious how you become a cooperating agency as opposed to being whatever we became. How did we blow it?
Did it was a cooperating agency.
Yeah.
Okay, it was.
County and also the city of Angels Camp. Those are the
All right,
three
both were included in that process.
Yes.
All right.
And, yeah, Dan reminded me that at least some of the meetings, no one from Calaveras, some of the cooperating agency meetings that the cooperating agencies were invited to, no one from Calaveras County came to those meetings, but did provide written comments later.
All right. That's kind of what I was getting to as my last question, which was I'm wondering if you could characterize, I suppose you've just done so, but you could embellish if you like, what our county response was. Were we timely? Did we get things to you in the course of time effectively? And if not, what could we have done better?
I think sending a representative to all the cooperating agency meetings that were held would have been more helpful to the planning team and to the other cooperating agencies to receive input. As I remember, we did receive written comments during every comment period. There were, I believe at the last comment period, those were received after the comment period ended, but they were still considered as if they'd been received during the open period.
All right, so we lost nothing on the basis of timeliness.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Tryon?
I guess mine are probably more a comment, but I'd be interested in your response to it. I mean, as I read the information we were given today, it's not surprising that alternative D would be the preferred alternative. I mean, it was written so that, in my opinion, the description of the alternatives were written such that the outcome was predetermined. Of course, it was going to be D because D was the only balanced alternative that did all these wonderful balancing acts. And quite frankly, I don't know why alternative D gets the definition of balanced. That's sort of some sort of objective criteria or subjective criteria that was made by the Bureau, not through public input. I mean, I suspect I could have written the description for the alternatives, and my preference would be B, and I'm not so sure if I had written it, and everything I could have said could have been absolutely as accurate as anything in here, and B, I suspect, might have been the preferred alternative. I mean, I read this, and it was a pre-gone conclusion what one's going to be the selected alternative by the Bureau. Of course it's going to be D. It was written that way. But I want to get back a little bit in defense of alternative B. You pointed out, and perhaps it wasn't a formal contract, but it was certainly an understanding in 1976 with the contract that in support, for the county's support of the dam, that both counties would receive economic benefits, and those economic benefits, you highlighted a component of those, and it was estimated that we would have, 3 million tourists rather than 800,000, and that was the understanding, if not a formal contract, at least a formal understanding that it was a quid pro quo. And quite frankly, you got yours, the dam, and the managing of the resources and your employment, but the county didn't get their component of that. And it seems to me if you started with the 1976 plan, if you wanted to operate in good faith, what you would have brought forward, because the alternative that's most consistent, even though entirely inadequate compared to the 76 plan, but is more consistent with the 76 plan than the other alternatives, quite frankly, is alternative B. And I think alternative B is, in fact, balanced. You mentioned in alternative B, which would sort of kill it right out of the chute, although all resources would be managed at a minimum to the levels required by law. So already you've said, it's a minimum standard. Quite frankly, I think the requirements required by law when it comes to the management of environmental regulations and natural resources are already unbalanced. I think if you just did it to the extent of the current laws when it comes to environmental laws, that you're already approaching an unbalanced state, not a balanced state. And you want to basically say that, but we have to have alternative D, which goes way beyond what the current laws are concerning the environment and management of the environment and natural resources. I don't think that's I don't think that's a fair assessment. And to describe alternative B as somehow some minimum rules dealing with the management of the environment and natural resources, I think is entirely inaccurate. And you look at the greater economic benefits of alternative B, they're just a shadow of what was promised in the 76 plan for the county. You look at sort of the history of this. I mean, we had to go out and build a dam over very strong environmental opposition. The county joins in, we build the dam, and then it seems like everything subsequent to then, it still has to be done over very strong environmental opposition. And yet, you managed, not you personally, but your institution managed to get everything they wanted out of the understanding. And then you basically turned around and joined the environmentalists. Once you were able to get the dam and get what you wanted in that contract, whether it be a verbal, implied, or whatever, however you wish to refer to the contract, you defeated the environmental community and obtained the benefits you wanted, and yet the counties, the parts of the benefit, the economic benefits the counties wanted, you basically turned on the counties and joined the environmentalists. And I don't think alternative B is unbalanced in any stretch of the imagination. I think it's much more balanced than alternative D. For some reason, the definition of balance is always giving way more to the environmentalists, which do not take care of human concerns. It doesn't take care of the citizenry who's paying for all of this as far as their recreational needs. It doesn't take into consideration the economic benefits that the citizenry needs, particularly in a rural community such as ours, or a rural county such as ours, to sustain ourselves. And then we sort of just get left holding an empty bag of air in all of this. And it just seems to me to be historically the relationship, sort of bad faith on the part of the Bureau and how they wish to interact with the counties. And I've been on the board now for 25 years, and I don't know how many times we went back to the Bureau saying, we want the additional economic benefits that you partially highlighted that went with the 76 plan. And the Bureau's response always was, well, we want to do it, but we can't get Congress to appropriate the money. I mean, how many times have I heard from the Bureau, well, we want to do it, but we can't get Congress to appropriate the money. And it's, boy, if we can get Congress to appropriate the money, then we're going to fulfill the obligations of the 76 agreement. And now you come back with these alternatives, and you basically have just flushed the whole thing, the whole economic package, not all of it, but probably 90% of it down the toilet with a new alternative. And it just seems like the whole thing has been a history of bad faith on the part of the Bureau and what they have promised, and then I don't think they ever in earnest lobbied Congress to provide the funding, even though they put all the blame on Congress not appropriating funding for not fulfilling the Bureau's obligations. So those are my comments. If you'd like to comment on them, why, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll just let my comments stand.
Did you want to make any comments, Mr. Laird, to Mr. Tryon? You don't have to. Okay, then Mr. Walensky.
I want to ask Mr. Tryon.
He wants to. Russ.
I thought we were at the question period, so I limited my previous remarks to questions, but I also have comments, and since Supervisor Tryon has entered the arena, I will do the same. The history of this really does matter in this county. We're kind of a historic place, and often we do have longer memories than the average place. But my memory goes back to when I was 19 years old and kayaking the thing. And by the way, there were hundreds of thousands of Californians and people from all over the world actually coming here, spending money, staying overnight, building our TOT, using that river as it was, which was a great recreational place, but also well-managed environmentally, and it was an all-around good balance. When I talk about balance, I try to reconcile three basic areas. One is environmental, and that's an important consideration. One is economic, and the other is social. We have a triple bottom line that would make this, to reconcile the three, you do have to have a balanced approach. And blaming one or another pieces of it really doesn't get us anywhere. We've paralyzed all kinds of projects and initiatives by trying to argue one at the expense of another. So the question really does get down to a couple of things. What was promised? What did we have before? What did we lose in the process? And we did lose a huge part of our economy off that river's loss. And did we replace it adequately with any kind of a plan that keeps that triple bottom line in mind? I recognize your effort to balance this, but also bear in mind that was an environmental and economic defeat. I sort of depart from Supervisor Tryon's remarks in saying that, well, we beat up the environmentalists and, we're going to get our economic and social balance somehow. But in fact, what really happened, and speaking from an environmental point of view, is that we lost the balance by not so much a tilt toward environmental work, but a loss of perspective on what we were going to do to develop new recreational opportunities in the absence of having lost the big one. And while many environmental